Daniel Reeves never expected that giving up a first-class seat would change his life. The widowed Marine veteran was just trying to teach his 10-year-old daughter Lily about kindness when he offered his seat to a burned woman that other passengers avoided. It seemed like a small gesture, nothing more than basic human decency. But what Daniel didn't know was that the scarred woman he helped carried secrets powerful enough to topple governments and enemies ruthless enough to hunt anyone connected to her. 3 days later, when Marine One landed behind his remote Montana cabin, Daniel realized that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the most dangerous ripples. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. Daniel Reeves stood in the security line at Reagan National Airport, one hand gripping his worn duffel bag and the other resting gently on his daughter's shoulder. At 38, he carried himself with the quiet posture of someone who had seen too much but refused to let it break him. His dark hair was touched with early gray at the temples, and his eyes held that distant quality common to veterans who never quite left the battlefield behind. "Dad, you're doing it again," Lily whispered, tugging at his flannel shirt. Daniel blinked and realized his jaw had been clenched tight. He forced himself to relax, offering his 10-year-old daughter an apologetic smile. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just thinking." Lily looked up at him with those green eyes that were so much like her mother's, it sometimes hurt to meet her gaze. She had Sarah's gentle spirit, too, though she was developing her own brand of courage that amazed him daily. Her brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore the purple backpack they had bought together last month after careful consideration of their budget. "Are you thinking about Mom?" she asked quietly. Daniel squeezed her shoulder. "Always thinking about Mom. But right now I'm thinking about how we're going to grab some terrible airport pizza before our flight." That earned him a genuine smile. Small victories. They moved through security without incident, though Daniel noticed his hands trembling slightly as he placed his belt and wallet in the plastic bin. Crowd still made him uneasy. Too many variables, too many people moving in unpredictable patterns. The therapist at the VA had told him this was normal, that hypervigilance was just his brain trying to keep him safe. Understanding it didn't make it easier. The terminal was packed with holiday travelers, families reuniting, and business people hunched over laptops. Daniel guided Lily toward their gate, scanning for threats out of habit, hating himself a little for not being able to turn it off. Gate 23, Lily read from their boarding passes. "Dad, that's so far." "Good thing you've got strong legs," he said, but he slowed his pace to match hers. They found seats near their gate with a view of the tarmac. Lily immediately pulled out the book she was reading, some fantasy novel about dragons and chosen ones. Daniel envied how easily she could disappear into other worlds. His own reading these days consisted mostly of bills and past due notices, paperwork that reminded him how hard civilian life could be for someone whose primary skill set involved tactical operations and weapons training. The cabin in Montana had been Sarah's dream. She had found it online during his last deployment, a small lakeside property surrounded by pine trees and mountains. They had scraped together enough for a down payment, planning for a future where he would leave the Marines and they would raise Lily somewhere peaceful. Then Sarah got sick, and peaceful became a distant memory. The medical bills had consumed their savings. The cabin remained, but it felt haunted by everything they had lost. "Mr. Reeves?" Daniel looked up to find a young woman in an airline uniform standing before them. Her name tag read Jennifer, and she held a tablet against her chest. "Yes. I wanted to personally thank you for your service," Jennifer said, her voice warm. "We noticed in our system that you're a Marine veteran, and we'd like to offer you a complimentary upgrade to first class for today's flight." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "That's not necessary." "We insist," Jennifer said. "It's the least we can do. You and your daughter will be in seats 2A and 2B. Lily's eyes went wide. "First class? Really?" Jennifer smiled at her. "Really? You'll board in Group 1. We'll make the announcement in about 15 minutes. After she walked away, Lily practically vibrated with excitement. "Dad, first class. I've never been in first class." "Neither have I," Daniel admitted. The military had flown him around the world, but always in cargo holds or cramped military transports. This felt extravagant, almost wrong given their financial situation. But Lily's joy was infectious, and he found himself smiling despite the guilt. "Do you think they have those hot towels?" Lily asked. "And the seats that turn into beds?" "That's international flights, kiddo. But yeah, I think we'll have more legroom than usual." This is the best day ever. Daniel wished he could bottle this moment, her pure happiness over something so simple. Sarah would have loved seeing this. When boarding began, they were among the first to enter the aircraft. The first-class cabin was small but comfortable, with wide leather seats and actual space between rows. Lily settled into the window seat, already examining every detail. "There's a pillow and a blanket. And Dad, look, there's a screen in the seat." Daniel stored their bags and sat down beside her, trying to ignore the looks from other first-class passengers. He was acutely aware of his faded jeans and worn flannel shirt, his scuffed boots, and the duffel bag that had seen better days. These people belonged here. He was just passing through their world. The cabin filled slowly. Well-dressed business travelers, a couple in matching designer luggage, an older man who immediately reclined his seat and closed his eyes. Daniel watched them all, old habits making him categorize and assess. Then he noticed a shift in atmosphere. A woman was boarding, moving slowly down the aisle with a cane. She was black, perhaps in her early 40s, with close-cropped natural hair and an elegant bearing despite her obvious discomfort. But it was the scars that made people stare. Burn scars covered the left side of her face and neck, the skin textured and discolored in a way that spoke of serious trauma. The scarring extended down beneath the collar of her simple gray sweater. Daniel watched as passengers averted their eyes or stared too long. A man shifted in his seat as she passed, as if she might be contagious. A woman whispered something to her companion, both of them looking away quickly when the scarred woman glanced in their direction. The woman's expression remained neutral, but Daniel recognized that particular form of composure. It was the face people wore when they had learned to expect judgment, when they had built walls so high that cruelty bounced off without seeming to leave a mark. He knew that face. He had worn it himself. She continued past first class toward economy, her cane tapping a steady rhythm against the floor. "Dad," Lily whispered. "Why were people staring at that lady?" "Because they forgot their manners," Daniel said quietly. The remaining passengers boarded, filling the economy section behind them. Daniel tried to settle in, but something fell off. He noticed the flight attendants huddled near the galley, speaking in low voices. One of them, an older man with kind eyes, kept glancing back toward economy with a worried expression. Finally, the kind-eyed attendant made his way down the first-class aisle, stopping at each row with an apologetic smile. "Excuse me," he said quietly when he reached Daniel. "I apologize for the unusual request, but we have a passenger with a medical condition that's being aggravated by the cramped economy seating. Her doctor submitted paperwork for accommodation, but there was a mix-up with the booking. Would anyone be willing to exchange their first-class seat so she can travel more comfortably?" Daniel knew immediately who he meant. The burned woman. He watched as the flight attendant moved forward, making the same quiet request to other passengers. The couple in designer luggage shook their heads without even looking up from their phones. The business travelers offered various excuses, their voices carrying just enough to hear. "Already settled. Need to work. Paid extra for this seat." The attendant returned to the galley, his shoulders slumped. Daniel saw him speaking with another crew member, saw them both looking back at the economy section with genuine concern. "Dad!" Lily was watching him with those perceptive green eyes. Daniel unbuckled his seatbelt. "Stay here for a second, sweetheart." He approached the galley, where the flight attendants turned to him with professional smiles that didn't quite hide their stress. "I'll take the economy seat," Daniel said simply. "Give her mine." The kind-eyed attendant blinked. "Sir, that's very generous, but you have your daughter with you. We couldn't ask you to separate. My daughter's tougher than she looks. We'll both move back. Give a lady both our seats, if that helps." "Sir, that's not necessary. If you take the economy seat, your daughter can stay in first class." Daniel shook his head. "We stay together. It's fine. Really." He returned to their row, where Lily was already gathering her things. She had heard enough to understand. "We're giving our seats to that lady?" she asked. "We are. Because it's the right thing to do?" "Exactly." Lily nodded, her face serious. "Okay, I like first class, but that's okay." Pride swelled in Daniel's chest. "Your mom would be proud of you." They collected their belongings and moved toward economy, while the flight attendant went to inform the passenger. Daniel found two middle seats about halfway back, wedged them into the narrow space. The seats were uncomfortable, the legroom minimal. A far cry from the leather comfort they had just left. Lily pressed against the window, watching as the scarred woman made her way back up the aisle toward first class. As she passed their row, she paused, her dark eyes meeting Daniel's. "Thank you," she said quietly. Her voice carried weight, authority mixed with something that might have been surprise. "That was extraordinarily kind." "It's nothing," Daniel said, meaning it. "It's not nothing." She studied him for a moment, and Daniel had the strange feeling of being assessed by someone who knew how to read people. "I'm Dr. Alana Brooks." "Daniel Reeves. This is my daughter, Lily." Dr. Brooks smiled at Lily, the expression transforming her scarred face into something warm and genuine. "It's very nice to meet you both. Thank you for your kindness." She continued forward, and Daniel settled back into his cramped seat. Lily shifted beside him, trying to find a comfortable position. "I'm sorry, kiddo," he said. "I know you were excited." "It's okay, Dad." She pulled her book from her backpack. "We did the right thing. That's more important than comfortable seats. When did you get so wise?" "I learned it from you." Daniel felt his eyes burn. He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Around them, other passengers were settling in. The plane prepared for departure, the usual announcements about seatbelts and emergency exits. Daniel tried to focus on breathing, on staying present rather than letting his mind drift to dark places. Flying was hard, too much like being trapped. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Daniel noticed a man in a dark suit 3 rows up. The man was looking back toward first class, his jaw tight. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then made a brief call that ended almost before it began. Daniel couldn't hear the words, but something about the man's intensity made his old instincts prickle. He told himself he was being paranoid, told himself that not everyone was a threat. The plane lifted into gray winter sky, and Lily grabbed his hand like she always did during takeoff. Daniel squeezed back, anchoring himself in the moment. His daughter beside him. A simple act of kindness behind them. Nothing more complicated than that. But as Washington disappeared beneath the clouds, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That giving up those seats had set something in motion he didn't yet understand. The flight leveled off. Flight attendants began their service. Lily opened her book, and Daniel closed his eyes, trying to rest. "Character isn't what you wear," he said quietly, more to himself than to Lily. "It's what you give up." Lily looked up from her book. "What, Dad?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Just something I was thinking." She smiled and returned to her dragons and chosen ones, and Daniel let himself drift in the uncomfortable seat, unaware that their act of kindness had been noticed by more people than he could possibly imagine. The flight had been in the air for about 90 minutes when Daniel noticed movement in the aisle. He opened his eyes to find Dr. Alana Brooks making her way back through the cabin, moving carefully with her cane. She paused at their row, that same assessing look in her dark eyes. "Mr. Reeves, do you mind if I sit for a moment?" She gestured to the empty aisle seat next to him. The large man who had occupied it had moved to use the restroom. "Of course not." Dr. Brooks settled into the seat with visible relief. Up close, Daniel could see that the burn scars extended further than he had initially realized, disappearing beneath her sweater collar and probably continuing down her shoulder and arm. Old burns, fully healed but permanent. Whatever had happened to her, it had been serious. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "That upgrade wasn't just about comfort. I have chronic pain from my injuries. The cramped seating and economy would have made this flight nearly unbearable." "I'm glad we could help," Daniel said simply. Dr. Brooks tilted her head slightly, studying him. Her gaze dropped to his forearm, where his old Marine Corps tattoo was partially visible beneath his rolled sleeve. The eagle, globe, and anchor. The mark of someone who had served. "You're a Marine," she said. It wasn't a question. Was. Left the service about 3 years ago. "Thank you for your service." The words were sincere, not the automatic platitude most people offered. Daniel shrugged. "I did what I signed up for." "Did you?" There was something knowing in her tone. "Or did you do more than that?" He met her eyes, trying to read what she meant. "What makes you say that?" "Because I recognize the look. The way you scanned the cabin when you boarded. The way you're sitting right now, positioned so you can see both the front and back of the plane. The way you moved to help someone without hesitation." She paused. "Those aren't tourist habits. Those are operator habits." Daniel felt exposed. He glanced at Lily, who was absorbed in her book, earbuds in. "I was a sergeant," he said quietly. "Did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Led a search and rescue unit." "Search and rescue," Dr. Brooks repeated. "That's dangerous work." "All of it's dangerous." Daniel's jaw tightened. "My last mission went wrong. We were extracting civilians from a compound that intel said was clear. It wasn't. We lost 2 Marines. Civilians died. The people we were trying to save." The words came out harder than he intended. He rarely talked about that night, the night that had ended his military career and started the nightmares that still woke him sweating and disoriented. "I'm sorry," Dr. Brooks said softly. "Survivor's guilt is a heavy burden. You sound like you know something about that." Her hand moved unconsciously to her scarred neck. "I understand battlefield consequences better than you might think." "You were military?" "Adjacent." She chose her words carefully. "I work in military medicine and humanitarian operations. Sometimes those worlds overlap in complicated ways." Daniel wanted to press, but something in her tone suggested the conversation was approaching boundaries she wasn't ready to cross. Instead, he asked, "Is that how you got hurt?" Dr. Brooks was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was measured. "I survived an incident. That's the best way I can describe it. I was in the wrong place when something went very wrong. The details are classified, but the scars are permanent. I'm sorry that happened to you." "Don't be sorry. Be glad I survived to sit in first class because a kind stranger gave up his seat." She smiled slightly. "Your daughter is lucky to have you as an example." "I'm lucky to have her," Daniel said. "She's the reason I kept going after my wife died. After I left the service. Some days, she's the only thing that makes sense." "How long has it been?" 2 years since Sarah passed. "Cancer. By the time they found it, there wasn't much they could do." Daniel swallowed hard. "We had plans. The cabin in Montana. A quiet life. She was going to paint. I was going to learn to fish properly. Lily was going to grow up somewhere safe and beautiful. But you kept the cabin. Had to. It's what Sarah wanted. And honestly, Lily and I both need somewhere that feels like home, even if it's hard sometimes." Dr. Brooks nodded slowly. "Sometimes survival puts you in places you never asked for. You adapt. You keep moving. You find meaning where you can." There was something in the way she said it that made Daniel think she wasn't just talking about him. "Is that what you did?" he asked. "After you were hurt?" "I did what I had to do. Just like you're doing what you have to do for your daughter." She glanced at Lily. "She seems like a remarkable young lady." As if sensing she was being discussed, Lily pulled out one earbud and looked up. Dred Brooks." "Hello, Lily. How's your book?" "It's really good. There's a dragon who can talk to people, but only people who are brave enough to listen." Lily paused, then asked with the bluntness of childhood, "Does it hurt?" "Your scars." "Lily," Daniel said sharply. But Dr. Brooks held up a hand. "It's all right. Honest questions deserve honest answers." She turned to Lily. "Sometimes they hurt. Mostly they just remind me of something difficult I survived. Does that make sense?" "I think so." Lily considered this. "My mom died. Sometimes thinking about her hurts, but mostly it reminds me that she loved me." "Is it like that?" Dr. Brooks' expression softened. "Yes, it's very much like that." The plane hit a patch of turbulence, and Dr. Brooks winced, her hand going to her neck. The sudden movement clearly caused her pain, her composed expression cracking for just a moment. Daniel's protective instincts kicked in immediately. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she said, but her breathing had quickened. The scarring affects nerve function. Sometimes sudden movements or pressure changes cause pain responses. Can I get you anything? Water? Your medication? I have medication in my bag. I just need a moment. Another bump of turbulence, harder this time. Dr. Brooks' face went tight with pain. Daniel noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Without thinking, he reached up and pressed the call button for the flight attendant. The kind-eyed man appeared quickly, his professional concern evident. The doctor needs her medication, Daniel said. Where's her bag? Still in the first-class cabin, sir. I'll get it immediately. While they waited, Daniel tried to keep Dr. Brooks comfortable, Lily watching with worried eyes. The turbulence continued, the plane bouncing through rough air. When the flight attendant returned with Dr. Brooks' carry-on bag, she opened it with trembling hands and withdrew a small case. Daniel noticed the case immediately. It was medical-grade, temperature-controlled, with a digital display and what looked like a secure lock mechanism. This wasn't standard medication storage. This was the kind of equipment used for sensitive materials, for medications that required specific conditions or security protocols. Dr. Brooks caught him looking. Specialized treatment, she said simply, taking a small vial and injecting herself with practiced efficiency. For the nerve damage. Within moments, her breathing steadied. The tension in her shoulders eased. Whatever the medication was, it was effective. Thank you, she said to Daniel. Both of you. I'm sorry for the drama. No drama, he assured her. Just glad you're okay. Dr. Brooks returned the case to her bag, but not before Daniel caught another glimpse of its contents. More vials, all labeled with codes he didn't recognize. Medical equipment that seemed far more sophisticated than basic pain management required. You carry some serious hardware, he observed carefully. Part of my work requires it. She zipped the bag closed. Sometimes I travel with materials that need specific conditions. It's complicated. The suited man Daniel had noticed earlier was looking back at them, his expression unreadable. He made brief eye contact with Dr. Brooks, and Daniel saw something pass between them. Recognition? Warning? He couldn't tell. Dr. Brooks caught Daniel watching. He's traveling for work, too. Some professions attract attention. What profession are you in exactly? She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The kind where I can't answer that question on a commercial flight. The turbulence finally subsided. The captain's voice came over the intercom, apologizing for the rough air and announcing they would be beginning their descent soon. I should get back to my seat, Dr. Brooks said, rising carefully. Thank you again, Mr. Reeves. For everything. Daniel. Please. Daniel. She extended her hand, and he shook it. Her grip was firm, confident. Your kindness today mattered more than you realize. Sometimes small acts of humanity have larger consequences. I just gave you a seat. You saw past my scars and treated me like a person. You'd be surprised how rare that is. She glanced at Lily. And you're teaching your daughter to do the same. That's a gift that will keep giving long after this flight. After she returned to first class, Lily pulled out her earbuds completely. Dad, is Dr. Brooks famous or something? I don't think so. Why? I don't know. She just seems important, like someone important would be. Daniel considered this. His daughter had good instincts, better than his sometimes. Maybe she is, he said, but that doesn't matter. She was a person who needed help, and we helped. That's all. But don't you think it's weird? That fancy medicine case? That man watching her. You noticed him too? Lily nodded. He's been watching her since we took off, and he keeps looking at his phone like he's reporting to someone. Daniel felt pride, mixed with concern. His daughter was observant, maybe too observant for her own good. But he also didn't want to make her paranoid or worried. Some people have jobs that require security, he said. Doctors who work with sensitive information, government contractors, that kind of thing. It doesn't mean anything bad. But you think it's weird too. I can tell. He couldn't lie to her. I think Dr. Brooks is more than she's letting on. But that's her business, not ours. We did a good thing today. That's what matters. The plane began its final descent. Through the window, Daniel could see the snow-covered landscape of Montana, the mountains rising in the distance. Home, or what passed for home these days. As they landed, Daniel watched first-class passengers disembark first. Dr. Brooks was met at the gate by two people in dark suits, professional and efficient. They weren't aggressive, but they were clearly security of some kind. They flanked her as she walked, one carrying her bag, the other speaking quietly into a radio. Medical escort, Daniel muttered, convincing himself. She probably needs help with her medication. But as he and Lily made their way through the terminal, Daniel noticed more details that didn't quite fit. Military-grade SUVs parked in areas that should have been restricted. Men and women in casual clothes who moved with the precision of trained personnel. Security that was trying to be subtle, but wasn't quite subtle enough. "Dad," Lily was pulling on his sleeve. "Are you okay?" He realized he had stopped walking, his mind cataloging threats that probably weren't threats at all. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Let's get our bags and head home." They collected their luggage without incident. Daniel's old duffel appeared on the carousel, battered but reliable. Lily's small roller bag with the purple butterflies. Everything normal. Outside, the Montana air was sharp and cold, clean in a way that still surprised him after years of desert deployments. He loaded their bags into his aging Ford truck, the one he kept running through determination and YouTube repair videos. As he pulled out of the airport parking lot, Daniel glimpsed one of those black SUVs in his rearview mirror. It turned in a different direction, disappearing into traffic. Probably nothing. Had to be nothing. But as they drove toward the cabin, winding through mountain roads as evening settled over the landscape, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. That giving up those first-class seats had connected him to something larger than a simple act of kindness. Lily dozed against the passenger window, exhausted from travel. Daniel drove carefully, one hand on the wheel, his mind replaying the flight. Dr. Brooks' words echoed. Sometimes small acts of humanity have larger consequences. He hoped those consequences would stay far away from his daughter and their quiet cabin. He had left the world of military operations and classified missions behind. He had chosen peace, chosen simplicity, chosen to be nothing more than a father trying to raise his daughter right. But as the truck climbed higher into the mountains, as the cabin lights appeared in the distance, Daniel felt the old familiar weight settling on his shoulders. The weight of knowing that peace was temporary, that the world he had tried to leave behind had a way of finding people. He parked the truck and carried Lily inside, tucking her into bed without waking her fully. Then he stood on the cabin's small porch, looking out at the dark forest and the star-filled sky. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the faint sound of helicopter blades. Probably nothing. Medical transport or search and rescue training. The mountains were full of those sounds. But Daniel stood there listening until the sound faded completely, until the night was silent again except for wind through pine trees. Just a seat on a plane, he whispered to the darkness. That's all it was. The darkness didn't answer, but Daniel felt its weight just the same. The morning after their flight, Daniel woke to frost patterns on the cabin windows and Lily's quiet breathing from the loft bedroom above. He lay still for a moment, letting the silence settle over him like a blanket. This was what he loved about the cabin, the pure, uninterrupted quiet that you could never find in cities or on military bases. Out here, 30 miles from the nearest town, the world felt smaller and more manageable. He rose carefully, trying not to wake Lily, and padded barefoot across the cold wooden floor to start coffee. The cabin was modest, just under 1,000 square feet with a main living area, small kitchen, bathroom, and a loft where Lily slept. Sarah had planned to add a proper second bedroom eventually, but that dream had died with her. Through the kitchen window, she would have, Daniel agreed. She always said winter made the world look honest. Would probably nothing. A lost driver. Someone turning around. But Daniel's hand was shaking as he walked back to the cabin, and it wasn't from the cold. Over the next few days, Daniel tried to maintain their routine. Homeschool in the mornings, chores in the afternoons, quiet evenings by the fire. But the unease wouldn't leave him. He found himself checking the windows more often, listening for sounds that didn't belong. Twice more he saw unfamiliar tire tracks on the road. Once he thought he glimpsed a dark vehicle parked on a distant ridge, but when he looked again, it was gone. "You're jumpy," Lily observed one evening as they washed dishes together. "Just tired." "You're lying. You only get like this when something's wrong." Daniel dried his hands on a towel, considering how much to tell her. She deserved honesty, but she also deserved to feel safe. "I think someone's been watching the cabin," he admitted. "Probably nothing serious. Could be surveyors or forestry service or just curious tourists. But make me nervous." Lily's eyes widened. "Should we be scared?" "No, we should be aware. There's a difference." He knelt down to her level. "I'm being careful because that's what I do. But I don't want you to be frightened. This is still our home. We're still safe here. You promise?" "I promise." But that night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in the dark living room with a cup of coffee, watching the tree line through the windows. Around 3 in the morning, he thought he saw lights moving between the pines. Quick flashes there and gone. Could have been animal eyes reflecting moonlight. Could have been something else. When Lily came down for breakfast, she found him still in the chair, exhausted but alert. "Dad, you need to rest." "I will, after I'm sure everything's okay." But everything wasn't okay. Daniel could feel it in his bones, in the way the forest seemed too quiet, in the way his instincts screamed that something was coming. That afternoon, while Lily was reading in the loft, Daniel went through his old military gear stored in the basement. His service pistol, properly secured and unloaded. His tactical vest, dusty but functional. The satellite phone he had kept from his last deployment, against regulations but kept anyway. He told himself he was being paranoid. Told himself that civilian life had made him soft and jumpy. But he cleaned the pistol anyway, checked the ammunition, made sure everything was ready. Just in case. That evening, the power went out. Daniel was making dinner when the lights died, plunging the cabin into darkness. Lily called down from the loft, her voice tight with worry. "Dad, it's okay, sweetheart. Just the power. Happens sometimes in winter." He grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer. "Stay there. I'm going to check the breaker." The breaker box was outside, mounted on the cabin's exterior wall. Daniel pulled on his coat and boots, taking the flashlight with him. The night was bitter cold, the kind that made your lungs hurt with each breath. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating falling snow. The breaker hadn't tripped. Everything looked normal. Daniel stood there in the freezing night, his breath making clouds, and listened. The forest was absolutely silent. No wind, no animal sounds, just the quiet hiss of falling snow. Then he heard it, far in the distance, barely audible, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors. His blood went cold. Helicopters didn't fly out here at night, not civilian ones. And that sound, that particular rhythm of the blades, was military. He had heard it thousands of times during his service. Had flown in birds just like it. The sound grew louder, closer, and Daniel felt time slowed down the way it did in combat. He ran back inside, taking the stairs to the loft 2 at a time. "Lily, I need you to get dressed." "Now, what's happening?" "I don't know yet, but I need you dressed and ready to move. Can you do that for me?" She heard the tone in his voice, the one that meant this was serious. "Yes." While she changed, Daniel grabbed his pistol from the safe, loaded it, and tucked it into his waistband. He pulled on his tactical vest over his flannel shirt, the familiar weight both comforting and terrifying. He hadn't worn this in 3 years. He had hoped never to wear it again. The helicopter sound was much closer now, directly overhead. Then, impossibly, it began to descend. Daniel pulled Lily close. "Stay with me. Don't leave my side, no matter what happens. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But I need you to be brave right now. Can you do that?" She nodded, her small hand gripping his tightly. Daniel moved to the window and looked out. Through the falling snow, he could see lights descending toward the clearing behind cabin. Powerful spotlights swept the ground, turning night into artificial day. "Stay here," he told Lily. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me." No. I have to see what this is. I'll be right back. I promise." He slipped outside before she could protest further, moving around the side of the cabin toward the clearing. The helicopter was landing, its downwash creating a blizzard of snow and debris. Daniel crouched behind a woodpile, his hand on his pistol, his mind racing through tactical assessments. This was no ordinary helicopter. Even through the snow and darkness, he could see the distinctive markings. Marine One, the presidential transport. What in the name of God was Marine One doing at his cabin? The helicopter touched down with practiced precision, its landing lights turning the clearing into a stage. Daniel stayed behind the woodpile, his tactical training overriding his shock. Armed security personnel emerged first, fanning out to establish a perimeter. They moved with the efficiency of Secret Service or elite military protection units. Within seconds, they had secured the immediate area, their weapons ready but not aimed, their eyes scanning for threats. Daniel counted 6 personnel, all wearing dark tactical gear. One of them spoke into a radio, received a response, then signaled back toward the helicopter. The side door opened, and more figures emerged. The first was Dr. Alana Brooks. She stepped down from the helicopter using her cane, but now she wore a formal military medical uniform. The burn scars on her face and neck were just as visible, but somehow she seemed different, more authoritative. The vulnerability he had seen on the plane was gone, replaced by command presence. Behind her came 2 officers in full dress uniform. Daniel recognized the rank insignia, even from a distance. One was a colonel, the other a brigadier general. This wasn't a medical transport. This was official business at the highest level. "Mr. Reeves," Dr. Brooks' voice cut through the helicopter noise as the rotors began to slow. "Daniel Reeves, we need to speak with you." Daniel's mind raced. Part of him wanted to run, to grab Lily and disappear into the forest. But another part, the Marine part, knew that running from this was impossible. Whatever was happening, it had already found him. He stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible, and walked toward the perimeter. One of the security personnel immediately stepped forward, hand moving toward his weapon. "Stand down," Dr. Brooks commanded. "He's not a threat." The security officer relaxed slightly, but remained vigilant. Daniel approached carefully, his eyes never leaving Dr. Brooks. "What is this?" he demanded. "Why is Marine 1 in my cabin?" "We need to talk," Dr. Brooks said. "Inside, preferably. It's freezing out here. My daughter's inside. She's terrified." "I know. That's why we need to go inside and explain everything calmly." Dr. Brooks gestured toward the cabin. "Please, Daniel. I promise you're not in any danger. Neither is Lily." Daniel hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. But he also knew he had no real choice. "You didn't refuse people who arrived in Marine 1. You come inside," he said. "Just you. The rest stay out here." The brigadier general stepped forward. "That's not protocol, Mr. Reeves. I don't care about your protocol. That's my home. My daughter is in there. Either Dr. Brooks comes in alone, or we have this conversation in the snow." Dr. Brooks touched the general's arm gently. "It's fine, sir. I'll go alone. Give me 15 minutes. 10, the general said firmly. "And we maintain external security." "Agreed." Daniel led Dr. Brooks toward the cabin, acutely aware of the armed personnel watching their every move. At the door, he knocked in a specific pattern he had taught Lily. "It's me, sweetheart. I'm coming in with Dr. Brooks from the airplane. Remember her?" The door opened a crack, and Lily's frightened face appeared. When she saw Dr. Brooks, confusion replaced some of the fear. "The lady from the plane?" "Yes, honey. Can we come in?" Lily stepped back, and Daniel ushered Dr. Brooks inside. He quickly locked the door behind them, noting the security personnel taking positions around the cabin's perimeter. They were professionals. Nobody was getting in or out without their permission. The cabin felt suddenly small with the 3 of them inside. Dr. Brooks looked around, taking in the modest furnishings, the photos of Sarah on the walls, the homeschool materials scattered on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry for the dramatic entrance," she said. "This wasn't how I wanted to do this." "Do what?" Daniel kept himself between Dr. Brooks and Lily. "What's going on? Why is the presidential helicopter at my cabin in the middle of nowhere?" Dr. Brooks leaned on her cane, and Daniel saw genuine fatigue in her eyes. "Because 3 days ago, someone gave me a first-class seat on an airplane. And that simple act of kindness triggered a chain of events that I need to explain to you." "I don't understand." "I know. Let me try to make it clear." Dr. Brooks moved slowly to the couch, sitting down with obvious relief. "Daniel, do you know who I really am? You said you're a military doctor, that you work in humanitarian operations. That's true, but incomplete. I'm Dr. Alana Brooks, Senior Medical Advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I also serve as a liaison between military medical operations and certain classified humanitarian missions. The burns you see are from an attack that occurred during one of those missions 8 months ago. Daniel felt his stomach drop. An attack. A targeted assassination attempt. Someone wanted to prevent me from completing a sensitive medical transport in a hostile zone. They almost succeeded. I survived, but barely. Her hand moved to her scarred neck. The recovery has been long. I'm still on active duty, but modified status. That flight we were on was part of my return to full operational capacity. Lily moved closer to Daniel, gripping his hand. He squeezed back reassuringly while his mind tried to process what he was hearing. Okay, he said carefully. I'm sorry that happened to you. But what does any of this have to do with me? Everything, Dr. Brooks said quietly. Daniel, the first-class seat you gave me wasn't just about comfort. I was carrying classified medical equipment. Sensitive biological samples that required specific environmental conditions. If I'd been forced to stay in economy, the cramped conditions and stress would have triggered severe complications in my injuries. But more critically, the conditions could have compromised the samples I was transporting. What kind of samples? I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that they were time-sensitive and critical to national security. Your act of kindness allowed me to complete my mission successfully. Lives were saved because of what you did. Daniel shook his head. That's a nice story, but it doesn't explain why you're here with an entire security detail. You're right. There's more. Dr. Brooks leaned forward. After the flight, standard security protocols required us to vet everyone who had significant interaction with me. You gave up your seat. We talked. You saw my medical equipment. All of that triggered background reviews. You investigated me. Yes. And what we found was interesting. Very interesting. Her eyes held his. Sergeant Daniel Reeves, Marine Corps Search and Rescue. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Multiple commendations for valor. And 1 mission that ended your career. Operation Harvest Moon. The name hit Daniel like a physical blow. He hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 3 years. Hadn't wanted to hear it ever again. That mission failed, he said roughly. We don't think it did. Daniel stared at her. What? New intelligence has come to light. Information we didn't have 3 years ago. It suggests that Operation Harvest Moon succeeded in ways that weren't immediately apparent. And more importantly, it suggests that your actions during that mission may be connected to current threats against my life and my work. Lily tugged on Daniel's sleeve. Dad? What mission? What is she talking about? Daniel knelt down to her level, his heart breaking. He had tried so hard to shield her from this part of his life. Sweetheart, I told you I was a Marine. I told you I did rescue missions. There was 1 mission that went bad, or I thought it did. Dr. Brooks is saying maybe it didn't go the way I remember. Did people die? He couldn't lie to her. Yes, people died. But you saved people too? I tried. Lily hugged him fiercely. Then you did good things. That's what matters. Dr. Brooks watched this exchange with something that might have been sadness. She's right, Daniel. You did good things. And now I need your help to understand exactly what those things were. Why now? Daniel stood, still holding Lily close. Why after 3 years? Because the people who attacked me are connected to the same network your mission disrupted. They've been operating in the shadows for years, but they're getting bolder, more violent. We need to understand what you knew, what you saw, what you might not have realized was important at the time. And you couldn't just call? Send someone to knock on my door like a normal person? You had a land Marine one in my backyard. A small smile crossed Dr. Brooks' face. The helicopter isn't mine. I'm just a passenger. The general outside reports directly to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. When I explained who you were and what I needed, this became a priority mission. They wanted to move fast, and they wanted to ensure your safety. My safety? You think I'm in danger? Honestly, we don't know, but we couldn't take the risk. Dr. Brooks stood, moving toward the window to look out at the security perimeter. The people who attacked me are sophisticated. They have resources, intelligence networks. If security protocols, you mean protection? Yes. For how long? We don't know yet. Daniel looked down at his daughter, saw the fear in her eyes, and felt rage building in his chest. He had left the Marines, to give her a normal life. A safe life. Now that safety was being stripped away because he had done the right thing on an airplane. "I need a minute," he said, "to talk to my daughter." "Alone?" Dr. Brooks nodded. "Of course. I'll be right outside. Take all the time you need." After she stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her, Daniel sat down on the couch with Lily. "I'm scared, Dad," she whispered. "I know, baby. I'm scared too. Are the bad people going to come here? I won't let anyone hurt you. I promise. But what if you can't stop them? What if something happens to you like it happened to Mom?" Daniel pulled her into his lap, holding her the way he had when she was tiny. "Listen to me. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happened on that mission, whatever Dr. Brooks needs from me, I'm going to handle it. And then we're going to go back to our normal life. You, me, and this cabin. That's still our future. Nothing's changed." "Everything's changed," Lily said. "Helicopters landed in our yard. People with guns are outside. How has that not changed?" She was right. Of course she was right. His brilliant, perceptive daughter saw through his attempts to reassure her. "You're right," he admitted. "Things have changed. But here's what hasn't changed. I love you more than anything in this world. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. And we're going to get through this together. You and me. The team. Remember? The team," she repeated softly. "That's right. And the team captain needs to know. Are you okay with me helping Dr. Brooks? With talking to her people about what happened on that mission?" Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You taught me that doing the right thing matters. Even when it's hard. Even when scary. If helping Dr. Brooks is the right thing, then you should do it." Pride swelled in Daniel's chest. "When did you get so brave?" "I learned it from you." He kissed her forehead. "Okay then. We do this. Together." They walked to the door together, and Daniel opened it to find Dr. Brooks waiting on the porch, her breath making clouds in the cold air. The security perimeter was still in place, the soldiers looking alert and professional. Beyond them, Marine One sat silent in the clearing, its rotors still. "We're in," Daniel said. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "Lily's safety is non-negotiable. Whatever security you provide, she comes first. Always." "Agreed." "Second, I stay here. In my cabin. I'm not going to some military facility or safe house. This is our home. We stay here." Dr. Brooks hesitated. "Daniel, that might not be the safest option. It's my option. Take it or leave it." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "We can work with that. We'll establish a security presence around the property. Discreet but effective." "How discreet can you be when you landed a presidential helicopter in my backyard?" A slight smile. "Point taken. But we can be subtler going forward." "Third condition, when this is done, when you have what you need, you leave us alone. No more missions. No more connections to classified operations. Lily and I go back to being normal people living normal lives." "I can't promise that entirely," Dr. Brooks said honestly. "If you're in danger because of your past, we can't just walk away. But I can promise that once the immediate threat is resolved, we'll do everything possible to let you return to your life." It wasn't the answer Daniel wanted, but it was probably the best he would get. "Okay," he said. "Then let's do this. What do you need from me?" Dr. Brooks smiled, and for the first time since landing, she looked genuinely relieved. "Thank you, Daniel. Your cooperation could make a real difference. To a lot of people. I just gave you a seat on an airplane," Daniel said quietly. "That's all I meant to do." "Character isn't what you wear," Dr. Brooks replied, and Daniel recognized his own words from the flight. "It's what you give up. You gave up comfort. You gave up luxury. And in doing so, you reminded me that kindness still exists in this world. That people still help each other for no reason except that it's right. That's rare, especially in the world I inhabit." She extended her hand, and Daniel shook it. "Your kindness saved more than comfort on that flight," she continued. "It may have saved lives. And now, with your help, it might save more. We need to understand what you learned during Operation Harvest Moon. Because whatever you stumbled onto 3 years ago, it's still active, still dangerous, and still worth killing for." Daniel felt the weight of her words settle over him. The simple act of giving up a seat had connected him to something far larger than he had imagined. But as he looked at Lily standing beside him, her hand in his, he knew he would face whatever came. Not because he wanted to, not because it was easy, but because it was right, and because his daughter was watching, learning what it meant to be brave. "Okay," he said again. "Let's finish what I started 3 years ago." The next morning brought a strange new reality to the cabin. Daniel woke to find military personnel stationed discreetly around his property. They weren't obvious about it, but he knew where to look. A pair near the tree line, pretending to survey the forest. Another positioned where they could monitor the access road. Professional, competent, and a constant reminder that his quiet life had been shattered. Dr. Brooks arrived at 9 o'clock in an unmarked SUV, accompanied by the brigadier general from the night before and a woman in civilian clothes carrying a laptop and several sealed files. They set up at Daniel's kitchen table, transforming his modest home into an impromptu command center. Lily watched from aloft, her book forgotten in her lap. Daniel had explained as much as he could over breakfast, trying to make military debriefings sound routine and boring. She hadn't bought it, but she trusted him enough not to argue. "Coffee," Daniel offered, playing host despite the surreal circumstances. "Thank you," Dr. Brooks said. She looked tired, her scars more pronounced in the morning light. "Daniel, this is Brigadier General Marcus Hayes and Sarah Chun from Defense Intelligence. They'll be conducting the debriefing with me." Daniel noted the irony of the DIA analyst's first name matching his late wife's, but said nothing. He poured coffee for everyone, then sat down across from them. "Before we begin," General Hayes said, his voice carrying command authority, "I want to be clear about what we're doing here. This is a voluntary debriefing. You're not under investigation. You're not in trouble. We simply need to understand what happened during Operation Harvest Moon and how it connects to current threats." "Understood," Daniel said. Sarah Chin opened her laptop. "Mr. Reeves, can you tell us what you remember about the mission parameters? The official objective." Daniel closed his eyes, letting himself drift back to that night 3 years ago. The smell of Afghan dust, the weight of his gear, the sound of his team moving through darkness. "We were tasked with extracting a group of civilians from a compound outside Kandahar," he began. "Intelligence said they were humanitarian workers who had gotten caught in crossfire between government forces and insurgents. The compound was supposed to be clear, no hostile presence. Quick in and out. But it wasn't clear," Dr. Brooks said gently. "No. When we arrived, the compound was wired with explosives. Someone had anticipated our arrival. The civilians were there, but they were being held by armed combatants. We had walked into a trap. The memories came faster now, unbidden and unwelcome. The flash of gunfire, the screams, his Marines taking positions, returning fire, trying to protect the civilians while avoiding the explosives. 2 of my men died in the initial exchange," Daniel continued, his voice rough. "Corporal James Mitchell and Lance Corporal David Torres. Good Marines, good men. After that, everything went to hell. We tried to evacuate the civilians, but one of them panicked and triggered an explosive. The blast killed 3 civilians and wounded 4 others. But you got some out," Sarah Chun said, consulting her notes. "According to the after-action report, you successfully evacuated 6 civilians before calling for emergency extraction. 6 out of 13, Daniel said bitterly. "I lost more than half the people I was sent to save. And 2 Marines died because I led them into a trap." Dr. Brooks leaned forward. "Daniel, what if I told you that those 6 people you saved were never humanitarian workers?" He looked up sharply. "What?" "The civilians you evacuated that night. They weren't who your intelligence said they were." She nodded to Sarah Chun, who turned her laptop around to show Daniel a series of photographs. "These are the 6 individuals you rescued," Chun explained. "At the time, they were identified as medical personnel working for an international relief organization. But new intelligence suggests they were actually intelligence assets working for multiple Western agencies. Deep cover operatives who had infiltrated a terrorist financing network." Daniel stared at the faces on the screen. He remembered them. Remembered carrying one woman who had been shot in the leg. Remembered a man who had helped him disable one of the explosive devices. Remembered their terror and gratitude. They were spies. "Assets," General Hayes corrected. "There's a difference. They were gathering information about money flows, funding terrorist operations throughout the region. The trap you walked into wasn't meant for you. It was meant for them. The terrorist network had discovered what they were doing and planned to execute them. Your mission inadvertently became a rescue operation for some of our most valuable intelligence sources. Daniel felt his world tilting. Why wasn't I told? Because the operation was so classified that even the people planning your mission didn't know the real identities of the targets. Your unit was given cover stories to protect the assets' identities. Only after you successfully evacuated them did the full picture emerge. So the mission didn't fail, Daniel said slowly. The mission succeeded beyond its stated objectives, Dr. Brooks said. Those 6 people went on to provide intelligence that disrupted terrorist financing networks across 3 countries. Operations that would have killed hundreds, maybe thousands of people were stopped because of information they provided. Information they only survived to provide because you got them out. Daniel couldn't process it. 3 years of guilt. 3 years of nightmares about the people he couldn't save, the Marines who died under his command. And now they were telling him it had been worth it. The civilians who died, he said, the ones who didn't make it out, were tragic casualties of war, General Hayes said firmly. But they weren't your failure, Sergeant. They died because terrorists set a trap, not because you made mistakes. My Marines died. Your Marines died doing their job, Dr. Brooks said softly. Protecting people who needed protection. There's honor in that. There's purpose. It doesn't erase the loss, but it gives it meaning. Daniel felt tears threatening and fought them back. Why tell me this now? Why after 3 years? Because one of those 6 people you saved is dead, Sarah Chun said quietly. Murdered 6 months ago in what we initially thought was a random attack. But now we believe it was an assassination. Someone is hunting the assets from that network. And 3 months ago, Dr. Brooks added, I was attacked while transporting medical intelligence related to the same terrorist financing network. The attack left me with these scars and nearly killed me. We believe the same people are responsible. The pieces started falling into place in Daniel's mind. You think whoever set the trap 3 years ago is still active, still trying to finish what they started. We know they are, General Hayes confirmed. And we think they might come after you next. Daniel's blood ran cold. Because I was there. Because I might have seen something that could identify them. Exactly, Dr. Brooks said. During your mission, you spent hours in that compound. You engaged with the enemy. You processed the scene. There's a chance you observed details that could help us identify the people running this network. Details you might not even realize are important. And if they think I have that information, Daniel said slowly, they'll want to make sure I can't share it. Or they'll try to acquire you to find out what you know, Sarachan added. These people are sophisticated. They have resources. The fact that you connected with Dr. Brooks on that flight, that you gave her your seat, may have reminded them of your existence. Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, Lily was building a snowman under the watchful eye of one of the security personnel. She looked happy, innocent, unaware of the danger surrounding them. My daughter, he said, will be protected, General Hayes promised. We have a full security detail monitoring this property. Nothing gets in or out without our knowledge. That's not enough. These people attacked Dr. Brooks despite military security. What makes you think they can't get to Lily? Because now we're expecting them, Dr. Brooks said, standing and walking to join him at the window. 3 months ago, I didn't know I was a target. You have that advantage. And you have something else. You have skills, training, instincts that save lives in combat. You're not helpless, Daniel. He looked at her scarred face, saw the determination there despite everything she had endured. What do you need from me? He asked. Your memories. Everything you can recall from that night. The people you saw. The things they said. How the compound was organized. Any detail, no matter how small, could be the key to identifying these people. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. They spent the next 4 hours reconstructing that night in painstaking detail. Daniel walked them through every moment, from the helicopter insertion to the emergency extraction. Sarah Chun took notes, while General Hayes asked clarifying questions. Dr. Brooks listened intently, occasionally interjecting with observations. It was exhausting, forcing himself to relive that nightmare. But it was also strangely cathartic. For the first time, He wasn't remembering in shame and guilt. He was remembering with purpose. There was one man, Daniel said, describing a memory that had haunted him. He was directing the others. Didn't engage directly, stayed back. He spoke English with an accent I couldn't place. European, maybe. He kept saying something into a radio. A call sign or code name. It sounded like Raven or Raven something. Sarah Chen's fingers flew across her keyboard. Raven. That's good. That's very good. We've intercepted communications using that designation in connection with the terrorist financing network. You think that was their commander? General Hayes asked. Possibly. Or a coordinator. Someone important enough to direct operations, but careful enough not to expose himself directly. Dr. Brooks was studying Daniel's face. What else? I can see there's something else. Daniel hesitated. When we were evacuating one of the assets, the woman with the leg wound, she whispered something to me. At the time, I thought she was delirious from pain. She said, "Tell them the money flows through glass towers." I didn't know what she meant. I reported it in my debrief, but nobody followed up. The room went silent. Sarah Chun looked up from her laptop, her expression intense. Glass towers, she repeated. Daniel, that could be huge. Financial centers. Banks. We've been trying to trace the money flow through this network for years. If she was giving you intelligence about their laundering operations, can we use it? General Hayes demanded. Maybe. If we can cross-reference with other intelligence, it might give us a starting point. Chim was already typing furiously. Dr. Brooks touched Daniel's arm gently. Thank you. This is exactly what we needed. Will it help? It already is. The debriefing continued into the afternoon, breaking only for lunch. Lily came downstairs, curious about the activity, and Dr. Brooks took time to talk with her while Daniel stretched his legs outside. He walked the perimeter of his property, nodding to the security personnel who tried to stay invisible but couldn't quite manage it. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, when he answered, someone spoke. Sergeant Reeves. The voice was male, heavily accented. European, just like the man from the compound. You should have stayed quiet. Daniel's blood turned to ice. Who is this? Someone who remembers Operation Harvest Moon. Someone who knows what you took from us that night. Tell me, how is your daughter? Lily, isn't it? Such a beautiful name. The call ended. Daniel ran back to the cabin, his heart pounding. He burst through the door to find Lily safe with Dr. Brooks, working on a puzzle together. The relief was overwhelming. What's wrong? Dr. Brooks asked, reading his expression immediately. They called. Threatened Lily. Daniel's hands were shaking. They know her name. General Hayes was on his feet instantly, barking orders into his radio. The security perimeter tightened immediately. Personnel moving into more aggressive positions. We need to trace that call, Sarachin said. They'll have used a burner, routed through multiple locations. But try anyway. Hayes turned to Daniel. What exactly did they say? Daniel repeated the conversation word for word. With each sentence, the general's expression grew darker. They're trying to intimidate you, Dr. Brooks said. Make you afraid. Make you refuse to cooperate with us. It's working, Daniel said roughly. I can't let them hurt Lily. They won't hurt her. We won't let them. Dr. Brooks moved closer. Daniel, this is actually good news. How is this good news? Because they're scared. If they weren't worried about what you know, they wouldn't be reaching out. They're trying to silence you before you remember something crucial, which means you already have remembered something crucial. The call sign. The glass towers. Exactly. We're close to something, and they know it. Lily looked up from the puzzle, her face worried. Dad? What's happening? He knelt beside her, trying to project calm he didn't feel. Someone made a threatening call. But you're safe. All these people here are making sure you stay safe. Are they the bad people? The ones who hurt Dr. Brooks? We think so. What do they want? Daniel glanced at Dr. Brooks, who nodded slightly. His daughter deserved truth. They want me to stop helping Dr. Brooks. They want me to pretend I don't remember things from a mission I did 3 years ago. Things that could help catch them. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, but you're going to help anyway, right? Because it's the right thing? I don't want to put you in danger. You already taught me that doing right things is more important than doing easy things. You can't stop now, just because I'm scared. That would make everything you taught me a lie. Pride and terror warred in Daniel's chest. His daughter was braver than he had any right to expect. Braver than he felt right now. Okay, he said softly. We keep going, but we do it smart. We do it safe. Over the next 2 days, the cabin became a fortress. More security personnel arrived. Communications equipment was installed. Sarah Chun set up a proper intelligence workstation in what had been Daniel's bedroom. He and Lily moved into the loft together, sleeping in shifts, never both unconscious at the same time. Daniel spent hours reviewing classified files about the terrorist network. Names, faces, financial transactions. Trying to match his memories to the evidence. Trying to find the connections that would break the case open. Here, Sarah Chun said on the 3rd day, pulling up a photograph. Does this man look familiar? Daniel studied the image. Middle-aged, European features, dark hair graying at the temples. There was something about the eyes. Maybe. I'm not sure. The compound was dark, and everything happened fast. This is Viktor Volkov, Russian national, former intelligence officer. We believe he's been running terrorist financing operations for the past decade. If he's your Raven, it would explain a lot. What's his connection to Dr. Brooks' attack? We're not sure yet, but Volkov has been linked to several assassinations of intelligence assets, including the one who died 6 months ago. Daniel studied the photograph harder, trying to remember. Had this man been to the compound? Had he heard this man's voice? Dr. Brooks sat with Daniel on the porch despite the cold. They had fallen into an easy companionship over the past days. Two people bound by trauma try to make sense of violence. How do you do it? Daniel asked. Live with the scars. The constant reminder. Some days better than others, she admitted. But I try to remember that I survived. I'm still here to do good work. That the people who attacked me didn't win. Do you ever wish you'd chosen a different path? Something safer. Every day. But then I remember why I do this work. The people we help. The lives we save. It matters, Daniel. What we do matters. Even when it costs everything. Especially then. Sarah Chun emerged onto the porch, her expression urgent. I found something in the archived audio. A voice match. It's definitely Volkov who was at your compound. And I found something else. Financial records linking him to a banking operation in Geneva. Glass Towers, Daniel. You were right. Then we have him, General Hayes said, joining them. We have evidence, Dr. Brooks corrected. Now we need to build a case strong enough to shut down his entire operation. Daniel studied the evidence on Chen's screen. There it was. The face from his nightmares. The voice that had haunted him. Viktor Volkov, the man who had set the trap that killed his Marines. I want to help finish this, Daniel said. Whatever you need. I'm in. Dr. Brooks looked at him with something like respect. You've already done more than enough. No, not until it's over. Not until Lily can sleep without guards outside her window. Not until we're really safe. He looked back at his daughter through the window and made a silent promise. This would end. One way or another, he would make sure she could have the peaceful life he had promised her. The life Sarah had dreamed of for them all. The life worth fighting for. The attack came on the 4th night. Daniel had just finished his evening perimeter check when the first drone appeared. This one was different from before, larger and more sophisticated. It hovered above the tree line, its camera lens focused directly on the cabin. Security personnel immediately raised weapons, but General Hayes' voice crackled over their radios. Hold fire. We need to track where it's transmitting. Sarah Chun was already on her equipment, fingers flying across keyboards. Got it. Signals bouncing through multiple relays, but the origin point is approximately 8 miles northeast. Abandoned logging station. Send a team. Hayes ordered, but Daniel's instincts were screaming. This felt wrong. Too obvious. Too easy. It's a distraction, he said. They want us to send people away from the cabin. To thin our defenses. Dr. Brooks, standing beside him on the porch, nodded slowly. He's right. This feels like a probe. Testing our response. As if confirming their fears, the drone suddenly dropped something. A small canister that landed in the clearing, releasing thick smoke. Not tear gas or anything toxic, just concealment. Within seconds, visibility dropped to almost nothing. All units, maintain positions, Hayes commanded. Do not break formation. Through the smoke, Daniel heard sounds. Movement in the forest. Multiple contacts approaching from different directions. The security team was responding, their training evident in their coordinated positioning. But Daniel knew what was happening. Whoever was out, there wasn't trying to breach the perimeter. They were demonstrating that they could. The smoke cleared after 10 minutes. No shots fired. No actual attack. Just a message delivered with precision. We can reach you whenever we want. Lily had watched everything from the loft window, her face pale but composed. When Daniel climbed up to check on her, she wrapped her arms around him without speaking. They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, drawing strength from each other. They're playing with us, Dr. Brooks said later, as they gathered in the cabin's main room. Psychological warfare, making us feel vulnerable. It's working, Daniel admitted. How long can we maintain this? How long before they actually try something? Not long, Sarachin said, looking up from her laptop. But I have good news. The intelligence you provided, combined with what we've been gathering, has given us enough to move against Volkov's network. Multiple agencies are coordinating arrests across 3 countries. If we can hold out for another 48 hours, the threat should be neutralized. 48 hours, Daniel repeated. 2 more days of this. We can do it, General Hayes said firmly. My people are the best. Nothing's getting through. But Daniel wasn't so sure. He had seen what determined enemies could accomplish, had witnessed how even the best defenses could be breached by someone willing to sacrifice everything. That night, he barely slept. Every sound made him tense. Every shadow seemed threatening. Around 3 in the morning, Lily woke from a nightmare, crying softly. He held her, stroking her hair, whispering promises he wasn't certain he could keep. I want this to be over, she said. I want to go back to normal. Soon, sweetheart. Very soon. Do you promise? He hesitated, not wanting to lie. I promise I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The next morning brought unexpected news. Sarah Chun burst into the cabin, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. We got him. Volkov. Interpol arrested him in Brussels 2 hours ago. He was trying to leave Europe with forged documents. Daniel felt relief flood through him. So it's over? Not quite, Dr. Brooks cautioned. Volkov's network is extensive. There are others who might try to retaliate or tie up loose ends. But this is a major victory. With Volkov in custody, we can dismantle the entire operation. What about the threat to us? Daniel asked. To Lily. Significantly reduced, General Hayes said. With their leader captured, most of the organization will go into survival mode. They'll be focused on protecting themselves, not coming after witnesses. But even as he said it, Hayes' radio crackled with urgent chatter. One of the perimeter guards had found something. A device attached to a tree, counting down. Not a bomb, but a timer connected to nothing. Another psychological tactic, another demonstration of capability. They're telling us they're still here, Daniel said. Even with Volkov arrested, someone's still watching. Dr. Brooks' phone rang. She answered, listened intently, then her expression hardened. When? Are you certain? A pause. Understood. Thank you. She ended the call and looked at Daniel. That was my contact at Defense Intelligence. They've identified the person coordinating the harassment here. Volkov's second-in-command, a woman named Elena Petrov. She's former Russian military intelligence, and she has a reputation for being even more ruthless than Volkov. Where is she? Unknown, but they believe she's still in the area. She may be planning one final attempt to eliminate witnesses before disappearing. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, more vulnerable. Daniel looked at Lily, saw her fear despite her attempts to be brave, and made a decision. I'm taking Lily away from here, he said. Right now. You could protect us somewhere else, somewhere Petrov doesn't know about. Actually, Dr. Brooks said slowly, there might be a better option. What if we use you as bait? Daniel's blood ran cold. Absolutely not. Hear me out. Petrov wants to silence witnesses. If she thinks she has an opportunity to strike, she'll take it. We can control the situation, set a trap, and end this definitively. You're talking about using my daughter as bait. No, I'm talking about sending Lily somewhere safe with half our security detail while we create the appearance that she's still here. Petrov make her move, we capture her, and this ends tonight instead of dragging on for weeks or months. Daniel wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed to take Lily and run as far and fast as possible. But he also knew Dr. Brooks was right. Running wouldn't solve anything. Petrov would just wait and strike when they least expected it. Where would Lily go? He asked carefully. There's a secure facility 30 miles from here. Military protection, the best we have. She'd be completely safe. Daniel climbed to the loft where Lily was reading, trying to distract herself. He sat beside her and explained the plan as gently as he could. I don't want to leave you, she said immediately. I know, but this is how we end it. How we make sure you're safe forever, not just for tonight. What if something happens to you? It won't. I'll have Dr. Brooks and General Hayes and an entire security team. Nothing's going to happen to me. Lily studied his face with those two old eyes. You're scared. Terrified, he admitted, but I'm also sure this is the right thing to do. Because doing right things matters more than doing easy things? He smiled despite everything. Exactly. 2 hours later, Lily was bundled into an armored SUV with 4 security personnel. Dr. Brooks had arranged for her to be taken to a secure military installation where she would be guarded around the clock. Daniel hugged her tightly before she left, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. I love you, sweetheart, more than anything in the world. I love you too, Dad. Please be careful. Always. He watched the SUV disappear down the mountain road, then turned to face the cabin. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. They maintained the appearance of normal activity. Lights on in the loft where Lily's bedroom was. Shadows moving past windows at appropriate times. Daniel even recorded audio of himself talking to Lily, playing it on a loop in case Petrov had listening devices nearby. Night fell. The security team was positioned strategically, invisible but ready. Daniel, Dr. Brooks, and General Hayes waited inside the cabin, watching monitors that showed multiple camera angles of the property. She'll come, Dr. Brooks said quietly. Petrov doesn't leave loose ends. How do you know so much about her? Daniel asked. Because she's the one who attacked me 8 months ago. She's the one who gave me these scars. Dr. Brooks touched her burned neck. I've been hunting her ever since. This is personal for both of us. Daniel understood that. The need for closure. The need to face the person who had taken so much from you. Midnight came and went. 1 in the morning. 2. Daniel was starting to think Petrov had seen through their trap when Sarah Chin's voice came through their earpieces. Movement. Northeast perimeter. Single individual approaching on foot. Everyone tensed. On the monitors, Daniel could see a thermal signature moving through the trees. Whoever it was moved with professional skill, avoiding the obvious sensor locations, using natural cover. Let her get closer, General Hayes whispered into his radio. We need positive identification before we move. The figure approached the cabin, and Daniel got his first clear look. A woman, athletic build, dark clothing. She carried a weapon and what looked like explosive charges. This was no surveillance run. This was an assassination attempt. Elena Petrov reached the cabin's exterior wall and began attaching something to the wood. A breaching charge designed to blow through the wall and anyone standing on the other side. Now, Hayes commanded. Floodlights blazed to life, turning night into day. Security personnel emerged from concealment, weapons trained on Petrov. She froze, caught completely off guard. Elena Petrov, Dr. Brooks' voice rang out through a loudspeaker. You're surrounded. Put down your weapons and surrender. For a moment, Daniel thought she might comply. Then Petrov's hand moved toward the detonator for her charges. Don't, Daniel shouted, stepping out onto the porch. He had his pistol raised, but not aimed directly at her. It's over. Volkov's in custody. Your network is falling apart. There's no point in dying here. Petrov's eyes found him, cold and calculating. You should have stayed out of this, Sergeant Reeves. Should have kept quiet about that compound. I was just doing my job. Same as you. My job was to eliminate loose ends. Assets who knew too much. Like the ones you saved. Her finger hovered over the detonator. Like Dr. Brooks. Like you. Elena, Dr. Brooks said, stepping out beside Daniel. I know what they did to you. I know about the mission that went wrong. The people you lost. But this won't bring them back. Something flickered in Petrov's expression. Pain, quickly suppressed. You know nothing about what I lost. I know you were burned too. Different scars, but the same fire. We're not so different, you and I. We're nothing alike, Petrov spat. You serve a system that throws people away. I tried to build something better. By killing innocents? By financing terrorism? That's not better. That's just more pain. Petrov's hand trembled on the detonator. Daniel could see the war happening behind her eyes, rage and grief battling against the cold logic that said this was over. Your daughter's not here, Petrov said suddenly, looking at Daniel. I can tell. You evacuated her. Yes. Smart. She deserves better than to watch her father die. She deserves to have her father come home, Daniel said firmly. Just like someone's daughter deserved to have you come home. But if you trigger that detonator, you're done. The security team will put you down before you can do any real damage. Is that how you want this to end? Petrov was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her hand from the detonator. I'm tired, she said softly. I'm so tired of all of this. Security personnel moved in carefully, disarming her and securing her hands. She didn't resist. As they led her away, she looked back at Daniel. Your mission saved people I was sent to kill, she said. Good people who were exposing the truth about our operation. I hated you for that. But I understand now. You were just doing what you thought was right. Same as me. The difference, Daniel said quietly, is that I chose to save lives. You chose to take them. Petrov had no answer for that. 3 weeks later, Daniel stood on the cabin porch watching morning mist rise from the lake. The security perimeter was gone. The military equipment had been removed. The cabin was theirs again, quiet and peaceful in the way he had always wanted. Inside, Lily was making breakfast. She had insisted on cooking this morning, wanting to do something normal and domestic. The smell of pancakes drifted through the open door, mixed with the scent of pine and fresh snow. Dr. Brooks was arriving today for a visit. Not an official debriefing or security check. Just a visit from someone who had become a friend. Daniel was surprised by how much he looked forward to seeing her. His phone rang. General Hayes. Morning, Daniel. I wanted to give you an update before it hits the news. Volkov's organization has been completely dismantled. Arrests in 17 countries. Financial accounts frozen. It's done. Relief washed over Daniel. And Petrov, she's cooperating, providing information about operations we didn't even know existed. In exchange for a reduced sentence, she's helping us identify other networks. The prosecutor thinks she might actually be sincere about making amends. Good. That's good. There's something else, Hayes continued. The Defense Department wants to formally recognize your service. Not just Operation Harvest Moon, but what you did here. Protecting Dr. Brooks. Providing critical intelligence. They want to give you a commendation. Daniel thought about that. A medal. Public recognition. It would have meant everything to him once. Tell them thank you, but no, he said. I didn't do this for recognition. I did it to protect my daughter and help a friend. That's enough. Hayes chuckled. I figured you'd say that. But the offer stands if you change your mind. After they hung up, Daniel went inside. Lily was flipping pancakes with careful concentration, her tongue poking out slightly the way it always did when she focused hard on something. Dad, these are almost ready. Can you set the table? Of course. They ate together in comfortable silence, the kind that came from knowing each other completely. Halfway through breakfast, Lily looked up at him. I've been thinking about what happened. About all of it. Yeah. You taught me that doing the right thing matters. But I learned something else too. Sometimes doing the right thing is really scary. And that's okay. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. Daniel felt his throat tighten. That's very wise, sweetheart. Dr. Brooks told me that. While I was at the facility, waiting for you. She said real courage is being terrified, but doing what needs to be done anyway. She's right. Are you still scared? Now that it's over. Daniel considered lying, then decided against it. Sometimes, I still have nightmares about the compound. About losing you. but I'm learning to live with the fear instead of letting it control me. How? By remembering what I'm protecting, by focusing on what matters. You matter, Lily, more than anything. And as long as I have you, I can handle being scared. A vehicle pulled up outside. Dr. Brooks emerged, moving more easily with her cane than she had weeks ago. Lily ran out to greet her, and Daniel followed at a more measured pace. "Welcome back," he said. "Good to be back," Dr. Brooks replied. She looked around at the quiet cabin, the peaceful lake. "This place really is beautiful. I can see why you fought so hard to keep it. It's what Sarah wanted, for Lily to have somewhere safe to grow up. She did well. Your wife. She chose a good man to raise her daughter." They spent the day together, the three of them, walking by the lake, talking about everything and nothing. Dr. Brooks shared stories about her recovery, about returning to work. Daniel talked about his plans for the cabin, small renovations he wanted to make now that he could afford them. The Defense Department had quietly arranged for his financial difficulties to be resolved, a thank you for services rendered. Lily showed Dr. Brooks her nature journal, all the animal tracks and plant specimens she had cataloged. Dr. Brooks listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering observations. Watching them together, Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe. The possibility of a future that wasn't defined by loss and fear. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel and Dr. Brooks sat on the porch with mugs of coffee. "I got official confirmation today," she said. "Operation Harvest Moon's records have been updated. Your Marines, Mitchell and Torres, are being posthumously recognized for their sacrifice. The civilians who died are being honored as well. The truth is finally in the record." "That matters," Daniel said quietly. "More than I expected it to. Closure matters. Truth matters, even when it comes years late. What about you? Do you have closure?" Dr. Brooks touched her scars. "I'm getting there. Petrov's capture helped. Knowing the network is dismantled helps. But mostly, it's knowing that the work continues. That the people we saved, the operations we protected, they're still making a difference. Is that enough? After everything it cost you? Some days yes, some days no. But I keep going because the alternative is letting the people who hurt me win. And I refuse to give them that satisfaction." Daniel understood that. The refusal to be broken. The determination to find meaning in suffering. "I've been thinking," he said, "about volunteering with veteran support groups. Using my experience to help other people who are struggling with PTSD and transition issues." "That's a wonderful idea. Sarah always said I was good at helping people, that it was my calling. I think maybe she was right." "She was definitely right," Dr. Brooks said. "You helped me on that airplane. You've helped countless others through your service. It's who you are, Daniel." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. After a while, Dr. Brooks stood to leave. "I should get going. Let you and Lily have your peace." "You're welcome any time," Daniel said, and meant it. "This cabin has room for friends. I'll take you up on that." After she left, Daniel did his final check of the cabin. Doors locked, windows secure. Not out of fear anymore, but just good habit. He climbed to the loft and checked on Lily. She was sleeping peacefully, her face relaxed and calm. No nightmares tonight. He thought about the journey that had brought them here. A simple act of kindness on an airplane. A first-class seat given to a stranger. Such a small thing, really. But it had rippled outward in ways he never could have imagined. Lives saved. Networks dismantled. Truth revealed. Healing begun. Daniel returned to the main room and pulled out a photo album. Pictures of Sarah, of Lily as a baby, of their life before everything fell apart. He looked at his wife's smiling face and whispered, "We made it. Your daughter is safe. We have our cabin. We're going to be okay." The next morning, Daniel woke early and made coffee. Lily came down yawning, and they sat together watching sunrise over the lake. The water was partially frozen now, ice formations creating abstract patterns along the shore. "Dad," Lily said, "can we take a trip sometime? Where do you want to go?" "I don't know. Somewhere new. Somewhere we can make new memories that aren't about being scared or sad." "I think that's a great idea. Where should we go first? Maybe the ocean? I've never seen the ocean." "Then the ocean it is. We'll plan it for spring." 6 months later, they did exactly that. Daniel and Lily stood on a beach in California, watching waves roll in. Dr. Brooks had recommended the location, a quiet stretch of coast away from tourist crowds. They spent a week there, swimming and building sandcastles and eating ice cream until they felt sick. On their last evening, as the sun set over the Pacific, Lily turned to Daniel. "I'm happy, Dad. Really happy. Is that okay? Even though Mom's gone?" "It's more than okay, sweetheart. It's exactly what Mom would want. For both of us. Do you think she knows that we're happy? I think if she's watching, she's proud of us. Proud of how strong you've been. Proud of how we kept going." They flew home the next day. As the plane descended toward Montana, Daniel looked out the window at the mountains and forests. His home, their home, the place where they had faced danger and found strength. The place where they would continue building a life. Lily fell asleep against his shoulder during the drive from the airport. Daniel carried her into the cabin, tucked her into bed, and stood for a moment watching her sleep. His daughter, his reason for everything. In his pocket, his phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Brooks. "Hope you enjoyed the ocean. Let me know when you're ready for visitors. I have some people I'd like you to meet. Other veterans doing good work. I think you'd get along well." Daniel smiled and typed back. "Sounds good. Come by next weekend. The cabin's always open to friends." He made himself coffee and sat on the porch one more time. The forest was dark, but no longer threatening. The stars were bright, reminding him how vast the world was, how much possibility existed. Daniel thought about the flight where this had all begun. The woman with burn scars who needed help. The split-second decision to give up comfort for compassion. Such a small thing, but it had changed everything. Kindness wasn't small, Dr. Brooks had told him. It echoes. She was right. His act of kindness had echoed through intelligence operations and military actions, had saved lives he would never know about, had brought him back from the edge of isolation into connection with others, had reminded him that he had something valuable to offer the world. And most importantly, it had taught his daughter what mattered. Not comfort, not convenience, but character, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the courage to do what's right even when it's hard. Daniel finished his coffee and went inside. Tomorrow he would start reaching out to veteran support groups, start building something new, start turning his pain into purpose. Tonight, he would simply be grateful for his daughter sleeping safely upstairs, for the cabin that sheltered them, for friends who had become family, for the chance to build a future from the ruins of the past. The cabin was quiet around him, peaceful, home, and that, Daniel knew, was more than enough. When was the last time you did something kind without knowing who you were really helping, and would you still do it if you knew the cost? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible, true stories of courage, sacrifice, and the unexpected consequences of doing what's right.